In the thick of World War II, on the dusty fields of North Africa, there was a tank unit struggling to keep up. They weren't just fighting the enemy, they were fighting their machines. Tanks broke down constantly under the desert sun, engines overheated, treads snapped, radios failed. Morale was low, and the Germans, led by Rommel, were relentless. But amidst the chaos was one man who would change everything. Corporal Mad Jack Callahan wasn't a general. He wasn't even a frontline commander. He was a mechanic. And in the history of war, mechanics rarely get the glory they deserve. Jack was obsessed with machines. He could look at a tank that had been abandoned for days and somehow make it run again. Other soldiers called him mad because his methods were unorthodox. He welded pieces of scrap metal where official parts had failed. He rewired radios using field cable salvaged from destroyed vehicles, and he even used desert sand as a makeshift brake powder when parts were unavailable. One day, his unit received a Sherman tank, battered and half destroyed from a skirmish. Everyone else had written it off as scrap. The officers wanted to leave it behind. It was too dangerous to tow, too slow to fix in the middle of battle. But Jack saw potential. He crawled under the tank, wires in hand, sparks flying from his makeshift welding. Over 3 grueling days, he replaced broken pistons with salvaged engine parts, repaired the transmission, and even modified the armor slightly with spare plating to cover weak points. When he finally climbed into the tank and started it, the engine roared to life. The crew who had been watching in disbelief couldn't believe their eyes. Mad Jack had done the impossible. He brought a dead tank back to life. But Jack didn't stop there. He modified the tank to be faster, more agile, and more resilient than standard Shermans. He added extra sandbag armor to the sides, rigged spare ammunition in easy-access racks, and even installed a makeshift flamethrower to surprise enemy infantry. The tank became so notorious that German soldiers reportedly called it the Devil's Claw. Over the next few months, Jack and his crew, operating this rebuilt miracle, went from being a struggling unit to one of the most feared in the theater. They ambushed German convoys, held positions against superior numbers, and even turned a retreat into a counterattack simply because Jack's modifications allowed the tank to maneuver where others could not. The legend of Mad Jack grew. He once drove the tank across open desert under fire to rescue a stranded infantry squad, dodging shells and tank rounds, all while performing in-field repairs to keep the engine running. Soldiers began to swear that the tank had a mind of its own, guided by a mechanic who refused to see defeat. But what made Jack truly extraordinary wasn't just his technical skill, it was his courage. Every time he climbed under a burning engine or rewired a tank while shells exploded nearby, he showed his crew that ingenuity and bravery could triumph over fear. He wasn't just fixing machines, he was inspiring men to fight when the odds were stacked against them. By the end of the North African campaign, Jack's rebuilt tank had survived more battles than any other in its division. Stories of its exploits spread through Allied units. Soldiers spoke of a tank that refused to die, piloted by a mad mechanic whose courage and genius had turned defeat into legend. After the war, Jack returned home quietly. No medals, no fanfare, just the respect of those who had seen him work wonders in the desert. His story reminds us that sometimes, heroes are not the ones giving orders or firing guns. They are the ones who make the impossible possible, who breathe life into broken machines, and who refuse to accept defeat, no matter the odds. Mad Jack's tank became a symbol of ingenuity, courage, and the unbreakable human spirit. In a war defined by destruction, it was a story of creation, a legend born not from strategy alone, but from the determination of one man who refused to see anything as truly broken. Even today, veterans tell the story of the mad mechanic and the tank that would not die, a reminder that in the heart of war, brilliance, bravery, and a little madness can turn the tide.